Welcome to an overview tutorial of how the ModX Manager is set up. What I want to do is just quickly walk you through some of the basics of how ModX is configured from a developmental standpoint, the way pages are set up, templates are set up, and some of the details as far as how PHP is added into snippets and a few other things that will give you on a more or less a surface level view of the architecture in the back end. By no means am I going to go into great detail on the specifics of the system, but really just to kind of give you a quick understanding of how things are organized. So when you log into the ModX Manager, you'll initially see the different pages that are set up here on the more or less a tree structure. It's just set up with a basic hierarchy. For example, you can put pages within pages, and you could add more inside of here, etc. And really this gives you just a nice way of organizing all of your pages and hierarchy within the site. Now, whenever you set up a page, you assign it to a template. So for example, the home page is, in this particular case, using the home page template. Obviously you can use whatever template name you want, but this is all set up here in the back end. And as you scroll down, you have basic things like a rich text editor, you have different fields, and what we're getting down to here is called the template variables. These are different variables on a particular template that you can edit. So for example, maybe the home page has a specific service section that's unique to the home page and doesn't show up on any of the other pages. Or again, it has a slideshow that's again unique to the home page and it doesn't show up on other pages like the contact. So a lot of systems have this exact setup. But for the point of this particular tutorial, we'll get into a little explanation of how these are set up. And let's go ahead and jump in next to explain the templates. Now, you can assign different templates to different resources here. And we've assigned this one, the one called Home, which is pretty straightforward. So what we can do is hop over here to the Elements tab, and we'll see the different categories here of templates, template variables, chunks, and snippets. And for the sake of this video, we'll get into the first four here: templates, template variables, chunks, and snippets. So let's go ahead and open up the templates container here, and let's take a look at the home page. Now, the beauty of ModX, and again, like any other system probably for that matter, is you can assign or put the particular template on the server in HTML form, and this system will more or less pull it in, and you can make edits either in the ModX Manager or on your server on that particular file. So if you look at the way this is set up, just scrolling top down, you'll see first of all this bracket $ head. In ModX, the nomenclature or the way you set up a chunk is by putting the bracket $ and then assigning it a name. If we come over here to chunks, we'll see it's a pretty basic site. There's not a whole lot of chunks that we have in here, but we've got in this particular case head. Now if we were to click it and edit, I'll just do a quick update. We can go in here and just take a quick look. You'll have your basic things, your HTML, your opening head tag, and your title, meta, all these values in here, your CSS, these kind of basic things. Chunks in the ModX Manager are much like a PHP include. They're reusable code that you can populate throughout the site. You can put chunks within chunks. You can put template variables in chunks, snippets in chunks, etc. So it's a nice, real flexible tool that allows you to just repeat code, instead of having, for example, on every template on the site to have to put the same raw HTML on every page. Instead, you can just put it one chunk, and then you can just call it on all of the templates. And again, as you know, the beauty is you can just update it one place, and it will update on all the templates. The next thing that you'll see, why don't we jump into header? Let's do that real quick. The next line down is a header, and I believe we have our navigation working in there. We can see examples of snippets. So if we scroll down here a little, let's take a look. We're using the kind of the go-to ModX navigation snippet called Wayfinder. And if you do any searches online, you'll see Wayfinder is just a basic snippet in ModX. And if we come over here on the left-hand side to snippets, sure enough, we should see Wayfinder, and it's right here. And what this does is it allows you this ability to separate very nice in a really clean fashion your HTML from dynamic, PHP. If you were to, for example, open up a WordPress template, instead of just seeing a few lines of code, you would see the actual PHP being written out fully here. And so for sometimes developers that can get a little, or rather front-end developers that aren't used to developing, that might get a little intimidating. to see a bunch of raw HTML, but to have things nicely contained, it makes it a little easier to make edits and updates and actually navigate through your code without having to scroll through a bunch of PHP. You can put that off to the side. In this particular example, you'll see, you may ask, well, how do we define the format for the HTML? How do we define the structure? Well, it allows you to define certain templates like, okay, here's an outer template, here's a row template, and all these are in their documentation to explain what these different things are. But again, what we've done is we've created chunks, and we can really a nice way of separating off, okay, here is going to be the outer nav. This is what it's going to be. We're going to have the UL, and then we'll have the inside with the actual list of navigations. We'll have that over here. So it's a kind of chunks within chunks. You can begin to kind of work through and look and find, okay, hey, I need to make an update on maybe add a class to this, and you can do that here. So I know that's kind of a real quick run through of that, but at least on a surface level, you kind of get an idea, I hope, of how snippets are set up. That you just pass parameters typically into it, and you can define. You'll see the word TPL right here, and then it'll have a reference off to slide list in this example, and this is where you would get into a chunk again to see that format, or rather the HTML setup in here. So on just kind of a quick run through, those are examples. So far we've covered chunks and template variable, or I'm sorry, chunks and snippets. But if you want to get into, let's talk about template variables. I mentioned those at the beginning. If you go over to head in this case, and you look in here, you'll see bracket, bracket, and then the asterisk. And what this does is it allows you to define template variables in certain places. So in this case, we have SEO title. And so with the rule, we've just written a little inline conditional statement that I won't get into here, but anywhere where you input a template variable in the template, it will output here. So I'm trying to think of a better example because that one has a conditional statement. I guess for the sake of this video, you can ignore the rest of this. This just basically says, hey, if someone doesn't define the SEO title, then we do this. But again, coming over here, we've got SEO title. And if I were to want to add an SEO title on the home page, I would scroll down to the SEO section, and I would enter that here. Wherever SEO title, I put content, it will be populating that template variable. So I've gone through so far, we've talked about our templates, and those are all set up in here, template variables, chunks, and snippets. So in a nutshell, that covers the basic setup. Again, I know this is an extremely high overview and doesn't by any means go into any great detail, but you at least get an idea of a basic ModX setup, the structure, and how the templates are assigned and the HTML is added into the templates, and then you have dynamic template variables that will populate information you enter here in the different resources. So one last thing I will say before I conclude the tutorial or overview is right now what I'm looking at is a super admin access. You can define in ModX different permission levels to limit certain things in the back end. This is the same website right here, but this is a sub-admin access level. Notice they can't go into the different templates, the template variables, the chunks, all that. They're limited to pretty much just being able to upload assets to the website. And let's see, let me come over here and refresh this real quick. Even when they go into the home page, and let me just unlock that and back out of that so I can do it over here on this site. But if I were to, in this example, go into the home page, what I'll see on the home page is a little more limited than what I saw in the super admin. We've specifically leaned down the page so there's no confusion on different elements. The client may say, hey, what is a long title? What is an intro text? Well, you're not using it on this page, so there's no reason to show it to you to avoid confusion. So anyway, that is a real quick run through of the basic ModX setup, and hopefully that at least gives you a general idea.